is Chuck Morgan, the voice of Globe Life Field, home of the Texas Rangers, welcoming you to the Waterbrook pregame show with our hosts, Jeff Denton and John Robbins. It is streaming time in Texas.
Good morning and welcome to the Waterbrook pregame show that's live, preceding our worship service with Jeff and John. I'm Jeff Denton, lead pastor here at Waterbrook.
And I'm John Robbins, student pastor here at Waterbrook.
Let us know that you're watching right now, whether you're on the FaceTube or the U-Book, whatever you're watching on. Make sure you comment and let us know.
Easter was hard for you, wasn't it?
It was very hard. We have been in chaos until the moment we've just gone on air, so this has been an interesting morning. If you are commenting, one of the questions we have today is, what are you watching while you are in the quarantine? We'll talk about some of the things we're watching, and we're interested in knowing what you're watching as well. Drive-through church is now open, and will be open again after the worship service from 11 to 12. Pastor John, what do we have at the... Did I even let you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. They know who I am, so don't worry about me. Drive-through church today, we have donut holes, kids curriculum like usual. Donut holes are back. If you love
so we have
donut
donuts
holes,
out there. By the way,
we have donut holes this morning.
This came through the drive-through lane. Let me just show that off here a little bit.
When you're the beloved staff member by our office admin, Tracy Hansen, who is my favorite office admin that sits at the front desk, then she brought special donuts just for me and my family, including my wife there. She even hooked up my wife.
I thought maybe they were going to be for you and me, and realize I'm going to cough on them now. What else is at drive-through church?
Yeah, so we've got curriculum for kids, like I said. If you would like to give your offering, you can do that as well. And then yard signs. We have some yard signs. We took a vote a couple of weeks ago.
Did a survey,
and so some really cool yard signs. This side says, "Our hope is in the Lord," and this back side says, "Join me for church online Sundays at 10 o'clock with YouTube and Facebook." And just a really good way for people to encourage their community and their neighbors to check us out. So
if you come through drive-through church, you can request a yard sign, and it comes with the stake and everything to put in the ground. And
stake and everything. Okay. We have 50 of them this week, so if you would like to come by, make sure you come by and get one of those.
I know one of our survey folks said, can they also be apartment signs that you can put in your window? And as long as your apartment allows that, that's a very creative way to do that if you don't have a yard.
If your apartment doesn't allow it, then just do it till they tell you to take it down.
Exactly. No, I don't think that is actually what we want to promote. Coming up later in our pregame show, we have an interview in a few minutes with some high school seniors. We now know they've lost their senior year completely. When I recorded this earlier this week, that announcement had not been made yet, but we'll talk to those high school seniors in a moment. We also have, we'll see what you're watching as you're under quarantine. We have some birthdays and a couple of very special anniversaries we'll talk about a little later. We have a new sermon series, and we have a prayer meeting that's going to be tonight at 6 o'clock. Very important. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. And it's part of what we're kicking off today, because for the next 4 weeks, we're going to do an emphasis on prayer. So intentional communication is this series in our year of life on purpose and being intentional about things. Intentional communication, a depth, an intimacy, a conversation with God. That's what we're going to talk about for these next 4 weeks. Based on Colossians chapter 4, verse 2, devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful, that we should be devoted to prayer. So we have 4 weeks in which we're doing this.
Yep. So tell us, I think one of the important things is to know what's coming, because it's really a cool series. We're really excited about it as a staff and as elders. We've been talking about it. What are the 4 weeks that we're going to talk about?
Well, and I took a picture because I put this on the board in the conference room where we have our staff meetings at, and it's been in there ever since we've been under quarantine. No one looks at this anymore. I did this so we would all know, but for this Sunday, Pastor Stephen Bramer, our teaching pastor, is from 1 Chronicles chapter 29, is going to talk about David's prayer of praise and thankful communication with God. Then next week on the 26th, Pastor Stephen will continue with bold communication and Peter and John when they were in prison. Then the week after that, May 3rd, I will talk about honest communication and the story of when Hannah is praying out of the depth of her heart for a son. And then on the 10th, on Mother's Day, we'll wrap up the series with willing communication, going where God is leading you in prayer.
It's going to be good. I'm really excited about it. So I think it's going to be really good. And what's really cool is for children and students, we have some special things for them too. Children's ministry, you will be getting, if you're a parent, you'll be getting an email from Pastor Ewing that has a message from Sherry Barton, one of the Splash teachers, and she'll be talking about intentional communication this morning as well. And then students, we will hope that you log in Wednesday night at 7:30 when Brittany Williams will be leading our discussion on intentional communication this week.
So this is a church-wide endeavor. We've asked home team leaders to engage their groups on this, to sort of up our prayer life. And this really has to do with the fact that when we are so isolated right now, we don't want to be isolated. We don't have to be isolated because God is always there. He's willing to talk to us, and we need to engage in that. And so this series was set up prior to this being a thing, but how much more relevant it is now.
Right.
And now one of the ways we're kicking that off tonight is with a prayer gathering at 6 p.m. tonight. We will gather together. The pastors are going to be helping to lead this prayer meeting together. The elders will be online to be engaged with people in prayer requests. It will be on both our Facebook and YouTube feeds, just like the Sunday morning worship service here. And it's going to be sort of a technological prayer meeting, but people can join in. We'll actually go remote to a couple of locations to have other people pray and join us. So whether you're in the U.S. or not, and we have a lot of folks who are watching our live stream from outside the U.S. as well, that you're welcome to join us Central Time at 6 p.m. tonight for that live prayer gathering. You can submit prayer requests online, and we'll pray for those. I think it's going to be a good time tonight at 6.
It is going to be good. So 6 o'clock tonight, make sure that you're checked in for the prayer meeting on YouTube or Facebook.
Now, we did talk about high school seniors. Friday, Governor Abbott announced that schools in Texas will not reopen, that the rest of the school year is canceled. Prior to that, earlier in the week, I had talked to 3 of our seniors that you had suggested to me out of our group of seniors at Waterbrook about their experience. And so when you watch this interview in just a moment, we're talking and they have hope that maybe the school year won't be canceled and maybe they'll get back. So that's the perspective they're coming from. But we thought it would be good to hear from some of these seniors who are having an experience that's very different than other generations have had because they have been losing their school year. So this interview is with 3 of our seniors at Waterbrook. They are
Bailey Smith, who's from Saxe High School, Madison Hume, who's from Wiley High School, and then William Verduen, who's one of our homeschoolers.
Watch this.
So you 3 are seniors who are all set for all the stuff of senior graduation, and this has changed dramatically this year, unlike it has for anyone else. So I want to talk to you about that for a little bit. But first of all, tell me who you are and what school you go to.
I'm Bailey, and I go to Saxe High School.
I'm Maddie, and I go to Wiley High School.
I'm William, and I'm homeschooled.
Okay, excellent. Now tell me, with the changes, we've already been out of school for a month now, basically, and it's still extending and going forward. I don't know if your school has completely canceled to the end of the year or if it's still sort of out there floating around, but what have you already missed from this school year?
I've missed cheer banquet and then senior field trip so far.
Okay.
I've already missed a Meyerson performance for band and some UIL performances.
Wow, a big deal. Are you majoring in music, Maddie?
Yes.
Okay, so those are big deal to miss in your senior year.
Yeah.
Okay, and William?
I've already missed my basketball nationals this year so far.
Okay, and were you expecting to do pretty good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's a big hit to all of you to have missed some of these things. What about as you're looking forward, if things keep getting canceled, what do you think you're really going to miss between here and the end of the year that might get canceled?
Prom and graduation have been pushed back, so those won't be happening when we thought they will. So hopefully they happen in the summer.
Okay.
For me, prom and graduation are still gonna be the date that they'd set. They haven't said anything, so I'm hoping that those stay the same. If not, they'll probably be pushed back too.
Okay.
And so far, my basketball banquet was pushed back and my graduation was pushed back.
Okay. But you're all still going to graduate, right? It's not like you won't graduate. It's just the ceremony, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell me how you feel. You know, the rest of us really don't. We'd have to go back to wartime, going back to World War I or II, where especially young men enlisted in the military and went off, you know, in their senior year and missed the end of school, to find another generation who has missed the end of their senior year of high school. Tell me, because the rest of us don't understand, what does it feel like, these cancellations and the way everything has just been happening? How has it been making you feel?
I think it's just kind of hard to believe because it's something that you have looked forward to for so long. So I think just like figuring out how to handle it. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel like kind of missing out on what everyone else gets to do. I really miss my friends, being able to see them before we all go off somewhere else for college.
Yeah, I'm definitely upset that I wasn't able to play in my last nationals, and to think that last year was my last nationals I could attend and not knowing that. But yeah, mainly just upset and kind of still in shock that things are getting canceled and things that I was planning on doing, I'm probably not going to be able to do.
Now, I have a question online. I've seen people posting their senior pictures from however many years ago to try and encourage the class of 2020. Is there anything about that isn't encouraging at all? I'm just wondering if you feel encouraging seeing other people's senior pictures.
I think
Anyone?
it's cool.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool. I mean, it's nice to know that people respect what we're going through, I guess, and that we're missing out on a lot.
How would you recommend we pray for seniors right now, or how could we encourage you as you face the end of the school year that may or may not happen? What would you tell people?
Probably for
No, you go.
I would say probably for just peace and comfort to get through the time right now, and because there is a lot of uncertainty of what's going to happen, and just strength too.
Okay, ladies, anything to add to that?
I agree with William. Just like patience to deal with like the whole situation because no one really knows what will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at this point, your GPA doesn't matter. You could all just blow off the end of the year and just not even care anymore and say, whatever, give me the piece of paper you'll give somewhere in the middle of summer. Maybe I'll even already be at college by the time you get around to it, so I don't care. Now, has anyone suggested that to you at all?
Not gonna lie, it's crossed my mind a little bit.
Okay, well, so tell me where each of you are planning to go come the fall.
I'm going to Dallas Baptist University.
To major in?
Kinesiology.
Okay, and Maddie?
I'm going to A&M Commerce.
To major in?
Music education.
Okay, and William?
I'm going to John Brown University
To major,
to major in kinesiology.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you, Bailey, Maddie, and William for representing all of our seniors and helping us understand a little bit of what it is to be going through this right now. And I'm sorry for the things that you have missed, but I guess if it continues, you're always welcome to come over and have prom in our backyard, and I'll play the accordion. So, you know, it'll be just like
Sounds
prom.
I don't know if the accordion playing in my backyard will
No,
be
they
just
were not
like prom.
excited. They were not looking forward to that.
So this is, you know, they mentioned putting out your senior pictures, which I had not done. I didn't know if it was encouraging or was like, hey, Maki, look at my senior pictures. But this is from my yearbook in 1986, the Arrowhead, which I was the editor of course. And right down here is my picture, my senior picture. Lots of hair on there, I would like to point out.
Yeah, you were showing me some pictures earlier, and I told you I couldn't tell if it was boys or girls in the picture because you all looked the same, and then you proceeded to say, well, it's because I had my hair permed, and I just thought, there's a reason you are the way that you are now.
You can see those pictures on my Facebook feed.
Yeah,
I've just posted them with that interview there. So,
but it's optional. You don't have to go look at them if you want to maintain this image of you that you are now.
Right, exactly. You know, they actually, you know, they here's a little behind the scenes. They put makeup on me before we go live because the lights all reflect off my head, and apparently it's a problem. I've never had to do that when I'm preaching before. I've never had to make that an issue. Hey, I want to talk for a moment about what year did you graduate?
2003.
Great. Okay. That's a long time ago, though. That's still a long time ago.
It is a long. It's getting longer.
I want to share this. One of our church members. This is Brittany Williams. You know Brittany. She's one of our student ministry.
One of our youth workers.
Phenomenal. She actually is working with us tonight on the prayer gathering as well. Helps us with a lot of our online stuff. She is in, this picture is from the latest issue of Connection Magazine. And in the magazine here, How to Save a Life, it starts off 7 a.m. Brittany Williams' day begins. That's how the whole article starts off. A recreation programmer at Wiley Rec Center arrived at work earlier than usual to get some things together and proceeds. The story is she saved a man's life, as you would expect Brittany to.
Absolutely. If there's anyone that can save a life, Brittany's one of them.
And so she jumps into action. Someone goes down working out in the rec center, and she begins CPR until the emergency, the response team arrives and basically helps to save this guy's life. And so got an award from the Wiley City Council, was part of that entire team that acted. And so congratulations, Brittany, and we want to salute you for that. That's just amazing. Now, I want to talk for a moment about, and we've been getting some responses, what are you watching during the quarantine? Have you watched that Lion King show on Netflix?
Well, Tiger King?
Tiger King, yes. Whatever it is.
Carol Baskin definitely did it. For those who've watched it, Carol Baskin definitely did it.
I don't know. Is she like the founder of Baskin and Robbins?
No. She killed her husband. So just don't worry about it.
Okay, I have no interest in watching this show.
Yeah, Dina saved it. I was telling her about it. It's really good. Dina totally saved it.
It is on my watch list because initially it started to pop up and people were watching it, and so I put it in my watch list. And then when I went and read what it was about, I went, no, I don't really care for this.
I'm going to be honest.
Is it good, though?
It's grown. But because we're all stuck in quarantine, our standards really have dropped. So, really have dropped.
What have you been watching, then?
At my house, we have 3 daughters, twin 7-year-olds and a 2-year-old, so a lot of Frozen 2. We bought it.
Just
and
repeatedly?
I bet we've put at least 40 rounds on Frozen 2 already on our Apple TV, so it's good. Trolls, we just watched Trolls. We weren't able to go to the Armstrong's birthday party this week.
Is this Trolls the concert or worldwide
World Tour? Trolls World Tour.
You
pay to rent it because you can't buy it right now because they came out during the quarantine, and so we watched it again 4 times in 3 days or in 2 days. So it's good. It's good. We watch things often on repeat in my house.
I loved I still believe that was in theaters right as the quarantine happened, and so it's a great movie. The story of Jeremy Camp.
Jeremy Camp and his wife.
And his wife, and it's an incredible story. It is like a Hallmark story mixed with Christian music, so if you like that kind of stuff, please go see that. We asked some folks online what they've been watching. Fran Fairley says that she's watching the Ken Burns documentary on baseball, which is a great documentary. His one on country music that was just out this last year is also really amazing. Judy Battenfield says that she's been watching a lot of YouTube, of course, and that includes Dr. Tony Evans, Priscilla Shirer, a weird cooking lady. She can't remember her name. That might have been John's cooking segment from last week's pregame show.
There's a chance.
Exercise videos, and the presidential press briefings, and she's of course Waterbrook on YouTube also. Who is this? Danita Fisher recommends the movie Harriet, which I have not seen. My wife and Tracy went to see that when I was in Europe this spring and said it was a good movie. So anything else you recommend?
Yeah, it's coming up on Facebook here in a little bit, but I will say that Melissa McKay posted earlier, John's looking good. Now, that's not actually what she said, but her comment didn't totally make sense, so I'm translating it. It had me translate it, and so I translated it that John's looking good this morning.
Okay.
So we'll come back to some Facebook. So if you're watching on Facebook, comment, and we'll come back to it.
Let me recommend this. I saw, and I'll loan it to if whoever comes through the drive-through church first and says, I got a Blu-ray player, I'd like to see this. Loud Crazy Love, the documentary about Brian Head Welch from the band Korn, spelled with a K, is an amazing documentary. The language is atrocious in it because they have a lot of footage from his band days and stuff. But it's co-produced by I Am Second, and it's really fascinating because it's not just a story of his story and conversion. It actually is how it affects the band that he was with, and it turns into a story, a documentary about he and his daughter. That's cool. And her experience was absolutely amazing, really cool. Where she's abandoned. It's a powerful documentary. I recommend. We last night watched on the Disney Plus thing. We watched Togo, about the dog with the epidemic in 1925.
Yeah.
I've used it in a sermon illustration before. When it ended, I sat in the chair and bawled like a baby. I'm not embarrassed. I do that at every movie. Avengers, I cried.
Right.
Yeah.
Which would sound like a lot, but you do it sometimes just in normal phone calls.
That is true. So, hey, if you need some encouragement and you want to know what maybe you should be watching, our friend Johnny Erickson Tada from Johnny and Friends has an encouragement about how you should be spending your quarantine. Watch this.
Hi, I'm Johnny Erickson Tada, and welcome to my living room, where we are all under stay-at-home rules, but that's okay. This forced isolation, this removal of all props, all the comfort routines, is forcing me and Ken into some deeper disciplines, like the last part of Psalm 46, be still and know that I am God, which is wonderful because all the verses before that describe trouble and famine and kingdoms in upheaval and nations in an uproar. And you could probably include the coronavirus outside these windows. So Ken and I are making the best of this forced stillness before the Lord Jesus. We are showing each other a lot more mercy. We're being patient. We are flipping to the Bible rather than to Netflix. We are finding comfort in prayer rather than the next YouTube video in the lineup. We are memorizing scripture when normally we'd be catalog shopping. Coronavirus is a test to see the stuff of which we are made and what's really in our hearts. So join us in being still and choosing, preferring, and enjoying and knowing God better during this very difficult time.
So we appreciate Johnny and Friends for allowing us to use that greeting from Johnny.
Okay, wait. Before we go on to the next thing. So my favorite comments so far of the day was Rainey Olson. We were asking about what they watch or watching right now. And Rainey Olson made a comment that Evan Olson made the comment that she's been watching Asian romance movies on Netflix with the subtitles so that she can practice. So Asian language romance.
I didn't think there was anything worse than Hallmark Channel, but I think you've just found it, Rainey. That is horrific.
I think so.
Again, I've not seen the show, but Sally Parker agrees with you. Carol Baskins definitely did it, she said. We have some special days coming up in the worship service in just a moment. Again, we have the new prayer series that Pastor Stephen will be kicking off today as we talk about that intentional communication with God. We also have some great songs from the worship band, and our band this morning includes Charlie and Paula Allen and Charlie's sister Leslie Jones singing, but they're doing King of Kings, Goodness of God, Agnus Dei, some great worship songs. And Pastor Don is introducing a new song that he wrote, God is Bigger Than Corona, the coronavirus. It's a fun song. I've been humming it all week since I heard it. So a lot of Pastor Ween will have a greeting for the kids in a little bit. And so all that's coming up in just a moment in our worship service.
Yeah, so we've got some anniversaries this week and some birthdays we want to get to. John and Vicky Rossetti have been married for 49 years this last Friday.
Woo!
Larry and Vicky Heath for 50 years. And
Congratulations. Their anniversary was actually yesterday. We were going to do a big renewal of vows and stuff that got canceled because of this. But congratulations to the Heath on 50 years. That makes the Rossetti's 49 years sound like chump change.
I know John's going to have to really keep at it here for this next year. Chad, actually throw that last picture back up. And you'll notice there, we got a stalker behind him that's just decided to join into the party there.
The best picture I could find had Kenny being a creeper in the background.
Kenny's just enjoying life there.
What other birthdays do we have this week?
Yeah, so we've got some birthdays. Actually, Carl Buchanan's birthday is today. I got that on Facebook this morning. Barbara Dawn's is today. Tomorrow is William Ralph Brown, Laura Duncan's dad. And then Vicky Limes on Tuesday and Christy Carnifex on Wednesday. An important
How
one
old
for
is Christy?
26.
Okay,
Yeah,
glad to hear that. Excellent.
Yeah,
That's
awesome.
Dan's putting up a lot of fingers. I don't know what that means. He's trying to give us a number, but we're just going to stick with 26, right?
And
another birthday this week.
Another birthday this week. Rose Marie Peterson was born this week to Ross and Serena Peterson. Matter of fact, Serena is commenting she's watching from the hospital this morning. Beautiful baby, and we are just really, really excited for them.
Congratulations to Ross and Serena on that new little baby. So we're going to keep praying for them. The yard signs one more time today at the drive-through church. You can get your yard sign. Make sure you request that when you come through. Those will be available to put out and invite people to church or give them a message of hope. And so that's the information. We'll be getting to the worship service in just a moment. You're going to go outside and get a dog.
I'm going to take this sign and get a dog.
I'll have an introduction in just a moment. But we thank you for joining us today for the pregame show and for sticking around for the worship service that begins when the counter hits 0.
This is Chuck Morgan, the voice of Globe Life Field, home of the Texas Rangers, asking you to stay home, wash your hands, and join us again next week for the pregame show. The regular church service is coming up next.
good puppy you are. I'm so glad you are here today. You're such a good girl. I'm glad you're here too today at Waterbrook. This is a great day to be here to worship together. We're starting a new series because it's important to be able to talk with one another, and we especially know that while we're isolated right now. But especially as we consider this isolation, we should be talking more to God. So we're going to start a series today about intimate communication with God and prayer. It's also a great day because Pastor Don has written a coronavirus song, and God is bigger than the coronavirus. So we're going to have that today also, and some other good worship and some teaching with Pastor Stephen. And in just a moment, Pastor Ween will talk to us as well. So we're really excited about today's service, and I'm excited that you're here. Welcome to Waterbrook. Good girl, good girl.
Good morning. We're glad you're with us. We're glad to be with you. We're just jumping right into your living room. Want all the dads and moms and the kids to gather around. We're going to do a kids' praise song. And I got two helpers here. What is your name?
Griffin.
Griffin. And what is your name?
Hudson.
Okay. These two helpers are my grandsons. And so we're going to do this kids' praise song that I wrote. And it's simple. You just follow and sing with them, and we'll have some fun with this. All right, here it goes. Are you smiling? God is bigger.
God is bigger
Than Corona.
than Corona.
God is bigger.
God is bigger
Than Corona.
than Corona.
He is good.
Good.
Strong.
Strong.
And knows everything. He can heal.
Heal.
Help.
Help.
Humble hearts that sing. Help humble hearts that sing. God is bigger
God is bigger
than Corona.
than Corona.
Praise you, Lord. Yeah, you guys sing that last one with me. So you all sing that last phrase with me. Now we got a second verse we're going to do. So let's try this. Repeat after me. God is smarter
God is smarter
than all people.
than all people.
God is smarter
God is smarter
than all people.
than all people.
He is good,
Good.
strong,
Strong.
and knows everything. He can heal,
Heal.
help,
Help.
humble hearts that sing. Help humble hearts that sing. God is smarter
God is smarter
than all people.
than all people.
Praise you, Lord. Yes, all right. Now, I'm going to ask you this week, we're going to sing the first verse one more time, and I'm going to ask all of you kids at home this week to think of some motions to go along with this song. Then I want you to find this song on YouTube or Facebook, play it again, and you practice the motions, and mom and dad, you record the motions and send it to me. And we're gonna pick the best motions and add them to this song. So you get to be a part of this song if you want to. So are you gonna play?
No.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna do God is Bigger this time as last time through. All right, here we go. All right, sing loud and shout that middle part out. God is bigger
God is bigger
than Corona.
than Corona.
God is bigger
God is bigger
than Corona.
than Corona.
He is good,
Good.
strong,
Strong.
and knows everything. He can heal,
Heal.
help,
Help.
humble hearts that sing. Help humble hearts that sing. God is bigger
God is bigger
than Corona.
than Corona.
Big last praise you, Lord. All right, give yourselves a hand. All right, send in those motions.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful Easter and you spent some time remembering what Jesus has done for you and thanking him for his love for you. Do you remember what we learned 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, we learned about Jesus' baptism. Last week, we jumped ahead to his death on the cross and his resurrection, because Good Friday and Easter are just so special and important for Christians. This week, we are back where we left off. We will be learning about Jesus' temptation. Here are 2 cups, one with a penny in it, and the other one with a $10 bill in it. If you get to choose one cup and keep what's inside, which one will you choose? When you hear people say that they are tempted to do something or they have a temptation, it means they have a choice to make. When we face a temptation, we have a choice to make. We can choose to sin, or we can choose to obey God. We can choose to believe Satan and his lies, or we can choose to trust God and his truth. The choice we make when we are tempted is very important. It shows either our disobedience to God or our faithfulness to him. In this week's lesson, you will learn about what Jesus' choice is when he was tempted by Satan, not just once, but 3 times. And you will also learn about how Jesus made his choice. So, which cup will you choose? This one has a penny, and this one has a $10 bill. Have a great week. I hope you and your parents have a good discussion. Remember, your Sunday school teacher and I are praying for you. I will see you next time.
In the darkness we were waiting, without hope, without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, 3 in 1. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. To reveal the kingdom coming and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise the cross, for even in your suffering you saw to the other side, knowing this was our salvation. Jesus, for our sake you died. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, 3 in 1. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. And the morning that you rose, all of heaven held its breath, till that stone was moved for good, for the Lamb had conquered death. And the dead rose from their tombs, and the
Good morning. I'm Haley, and I am part of the Harbor Young Adults Ministry. Currently, the Harbor is meeting over Zoom on Tuesday nights at 6:30, and we're studying Psalms. If you are a young adult and you would like to join us, you are more than welcome. Please contact the Waterbrook staff, and they can get you connected. One of the things the Harbor is doing in this time of quarantine is having small groups of 4 or 5 people to be intentional about connecting with one another throughout the week. We know that it's really important to maintain communication and connection and relationship throughout this time when many are feeling isolated or alone. Speaking of communication, we're starting a new series today on intentional communication. It's going to be great, so grab your coffee and tune in for a great message today. Remember that tonight we are having an online prayer meeting for the whole church. You can get access to that through Facebook, YouTube, or through the Waterbrook website. Drive-Thru Church is open today after service until noon. You can come by to pick up donut holes, supplies for children's curriculum, to pray with the pastors, and to drop off an offering. Lastly, we want you to know that you can contact the church if you or your family have any needs. Waterbrook is here for you and for your family.
I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire. In darkest night, you are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. All my life you have been faithful. the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God.
Well, it's great to have you listening here today. I'm a little afraid that when we get back together, you may show up in your pajamas with a cup of coffee. I've had to dress up. But we'll see you hopefully in a few weeks back together again when we can celebrate. This morning we're going to take a look at starting of a new series on prayer. We're going to take a look today at 1 Chronicles chapter 29. So if you don't have your Bible, grab your Bible and be ready to read, to understand, and to apply this section. Thinking rightly about God and yourself when you pray. When I was doing my Master of Divinity, I spent one of my years at Wycliffe Seminary at the University of Toronto. It was a great year in which I learned a lot, but perhaps the thing that I enjoyed the most was we had early morning prayers in the chapel. And when we would go to these prayers, we would use the Book of Common Prayer, and so all of the prayers were written out. I remember coming home and telling Sharon, these prayers are just so wonderful because they've been carefully thought through. They really said what I wanted to say. It was just a wonderful experience. Now, by the time the end of the year rolled around, some of those prayers had become pretty familiar. We as evangelicals often don't have written prayers. We often just pray spontaneous prayers, and there's something good about that. It lets you know that God can hear you about anything at any time. But when you do write out a prayer, you think carefully. And this morning we want to take a look at a prayer in 1 Chronicles 29. There are actually 5 major prayers, all by good kings, in the books of 1st and 2nd Chronicles. This is the second prayer, and it's a prayer by David. Thinking rightly about God and thinking rightly about yourself. I've come to believe that what you believe actually creates who you are. And who you are demonstrates what you believe. And what you believe comes through in your prayers. Let's see what David thought about God, what he thought about himself as we look at this prayer. 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verse 10. Therefore, David blessed the Lord in the presence of all the assembly. What has just occurred in the previous chapter is that David has reiterated once again that although he wanted to build a temple for God, God had told him he wasn't allowed to. Though David had the plans, although he had been gathering things together, he had to turn those plans over to his young son, Solomon. I wonder what you would be praying to God if you couldn't do what you really wanted to do, if you had to take what you had planned for and given it over to someone else. At the end of chapter 28, we know that David did not get discouraged about that, but rather gave of the things that he had that his son Solomon might be able to build the temple. But in chapter 29, verses 11 through 14, we want to take a look at what David thought about God. Blessed are you, O Lord, the God of Israel, our Father, who is forever and ever. Yours, O God, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the victory and the majesty, for all that is in the heavens and the earth are yours. Yours is the kingdom, O Lord, and you are exalted above head over all. Riches and honor come from you, and you rule over all. In your hand are might and power, and it is in your hand to make good and to give strength. Isn't God great? God's the greatest. When David begins to describe God, you begin to realize that there is no so-called idol or so-called God that could ever compare to the true God. There's no person, no king. There is nothing that would be able to be described as David describes this God. When we come to God in prayer, it's always good to remind ourselves of just who God is. When the Lord was teaching his disciples to pray, he said, "Our Father who art in heaven." He recognized that God was just not like anyone else, but rather we're to recognize God as being the supreme God. So we need to have a proper view of God. God is not only majestic, but he is the owner of everything. Everything that's in heavens and the earth, and the earth is yours. Yours is the kingdom. God has the right to rule. God has everything in his power and under his control. And it's only when God decides to give that to someone else that he is recognized then as being the one who has given something to us. But notice it ends off with, "And we now thank you, our God, and praise your glorious name." Usually when I give thanks to God, it's because of something that God has done for me. It's something that I've received. But the interesting thing is this verse occurs right at the end of that paragraph that is describing who God is. God is worthy to be praised and thanked just for who he is. David will go on to talk about what God has given. But could I just ask you, when you come to God, do you only thank him for what you've received? Do you only thank him for an answer to prayer? Or do you take the time to just thank him for who he is? I know that once you get married, it's wonderful to be able to thank the other person for what they've done for you. But it's also great just to thank your spouse for who they are. Who they are, because that means everything to me. Because my wife is who she is, that affects me. And because we believe that God is this type of God, it must affect how you act, what your attitude is. So having a proper view of God is essential. He's the greatest. But it's also important, secondly, to have a proper view of ourselves. God's people need to have a proper view of who they are. And in verses 14 through 17, David begins to speak about God's people. He says, "But who am I?" That is, the king of God's people. "Who am I, and what is my people that we should be able to offer willingly? For all things come from you, and of your own have we given you." David starts right off with thanking God for the possibility, for the opportunity to give. Now, why would he start that way? Because he's just spoken that everything has come from God. And when David realizes that he and God's people have been able to give an enormous amount of wealth in order to build this wonderful, wonderful temple that would become one of the wonders of the ancient world, made out of beautiful white limestone, but then covered with gold and silver and all of these precious elements that were within it. And David says, "No, we've given that to you, but God, who are we?" Because we really didn't give anything that we had created, anything that we had truly owned. We have only given back to you what you have given to us. He says, because we're strangers before you and sojourners. We're not part of the Godhead. But as our fathers were, our days on earth are like a shadow. There is no abiding. Once again, David recognizes, God, you're eternal. You're forever and ever. We're not eternal. So we want to thank you for the opportunity we have as temporary residents in this earth to give back to you that which you have given to us. O Lord our God, all this abundance that we have provided for the building of your house, for your holy name comes from your hand and is all your own. David recognizes that what he has come from the Lord. I wonder sometimes if we don't think that we're being pretty sacrificial, that when we give a gift of money or a gift of time, it's as though it is ours, and we now can decide what we should give to the Lord from our resources. David has a different view. Because he has the belief, the doctrine that everything comes from God, that God owns everything, that God has all authority, David does not regard the giving as being something that he's created, but rather an opportunity to give to God something that God's already given to him. Perhaps you can relate to this story where a very, very rich man, a father, asked his young child if he would like to go out for a snack. And the child said, sure. And he said, well, where do you want to go? And the little boy said, I want to go to McDonald's. And so the father took him to McDonald's, and he asked his son, what would you like? Anything you want. And he said, I just want French fries. And so his dad bought him the largest French fries that he could buy him. And they sat down at the at the table. I'm thinking about temple. Sat down at the table, and they began to talk. See, the father just wanted to spend some time with his son. He wanted his son to understand that what his father had was he wanted to give to his son that he might have a great time. And after a little while, the father reached across the table and picked up a French fry and put it in his mouth. Immediately, the demeanor of that young boy changed. And he looked over at his father and said, why are you taking my French fries? I think that that's often the way our attitude, the way we respond to God. You see, that father had given it to his son. He had all the wealth. The father could have actually gone and bought as many French fries as he wanted. What he wanted to do was have time with his son, and for his son to recognize that his father was a giver of good things to him. I think our Heavenly Father wants us to understand that when we give back to him, it's an opportunity that he has to fellowship with us. It's an opportunity for him to understand that we recognize that he's the giver of everything, and it's not our own. We're merely stewards of what God has given to us. When you understand that, it changes your giving. It's not something that has to be wrenched out of your hand. Someone has said God has plenty of money to take care of his ministry. The trouble is, it's in your pocket and it's in mine. And sometimes we hold on to that so tightly. Why could David free his hand and give to God? Because he recognized that God was the greatest and God had given it to him. He goes on to talk about how he is going to give to the Lord. In verses 18 to 20, he describes how he is dependent upon the Lord, and therefore he wants to give to the Lord willingly and joyfully without restraint. Verse 18 of 1 Chronicles chapter 29. He goes on to say, O Lord, the God of Abraham and Isaac, Israel our father, keep forever such purposes and thoughts in the heart of your people. Direct their hearts towards you. Back there in verse 14, he said, we are giving willingly. Down in verse 17, he said, we've offered freely and joyfully to you. That's what we've done. And now, God, would you take care of us? We need you. O Lord, grant to Solomon, my son, a whole heart that he may keep your commandments, your testimonies, and your statutes, performing all that he may build the palace for which I have made provision. It's very interesting that the word heart occurs 3 times. David is asking the Lord to give him a soft, responsive heart to the Lord, who's the greatest and has given him everything. He's asking that God would allow his son Solomon to have a heart, have a passion after the things of God. It reminds me of the fact that when Samuel was wanting to choose the anointed king of God, he said, I'm looking for a man who has a heart for God. And although David knew from his own experience that when temptation came to him, he did not completely have a heart for God, he realizes how important that is. And so he's asking God to give his people, and especially his son Solomon, a soft heart for God. See, if God doesn't give us a soft heart, we will wander. And if you don't have the right belief that God is the greatest, that God owns everything, we have a privilege of giving back to him, then your heart will become hard and you'll begin to grasp on to various things. When we come to God in prayer, we want to recognize that God is the ruler of all. He owns everything. We want to recognize that God has given us the wonderful privilege of being stewards, of being servants for him in this world, to be able to carry out his commands, his instructions, as Solomon was about to do as he built the temple. How do you pray? How do you pray? Do you recognize God? Do you see that everything you have is from him? And are you asking God for a soft heart? As we conclude, let me just give a quick selection of 4 applications that you may want to consider. Number 1, never stop believing that God's the greatest. Earlier on in this service, our young children, a couple kids, and Don Moore's grandkids sang, God is bigger. God is bigger than Corona. God is bigger. He's bigger not only than disease, he's bigger than anything else. Will you keep on believing that God is the greatest? Number 2, don't forget that all you are and all you have is because God has graciously given it to you. Stay humble. Stay humble. Some of us begin to think that we're pretty great. We begin to put ourselves as though we were a little God, and God is saying, listen, I've given it to you. And when we recognize that, we remain humble, and we're thankful for all that we've received. And then how you use what you have to bring glory to God is going to be a test in your life. Go back when you look at 1 Chronicles chapter 29, and in verse 17 it says, I know, my God, that you test the heart. See, God will bring times of testing into your life and mine to find out if we really believe he is who he says he is, and that we can trust him by responding in generosity in our giving. Finally, always ask the Lord to keep your heart soft, to keep your heart humble, to keep your heart recognizing who he is. If you develop a hard heart, you will not have a relationship with God that brings honor and glory to you, and you will not be able to live the life that he wants you to live. What we believe creates who we are. And who we are demonstrates really what we believe. Do you believe that God is the greatest, the generous God, and the one that we desperately need? I trust that you do.
Worthy is the Lamb. Amen. Worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing.
I hope you've been encouraged by our time in worship together today. Listening to Pastor Stephen, I think to keep our hearts soft and humble as we approach God in prayer, that He wants us to come to Him, especially with a heart of praise. So again, we thank you for being with us, and this blessing for you today from 1 Thessalonians chapter 3, may the God of peace Himself give you peace at all times and in every way. Just a few announcements as we wrap up here today. One is about our prayer gathering tonight at 6 o'clock. We'll be right back here on these channels with a live prayer event that you can be part of with the Waterbrook pastors. So please join us for that, where you can engage and be part of praise and prayer together. This evening again at 6 p.m. Central Time. We want to remind you also that as you come through drive-through church today, not only do you get the donut holes and some of the other gifts, the kids' curriculum, etc., you also can get one of the Waterbrook yard signs that are available starting today. And these yard signs that are both a message of hope that you can share with your neighbors and also an invitation that you can share with your neighbors to join you online for the Waterbrook worship while we're doing our live streams here. Drive-through church is now open. You can come through and participate, get prayed for, give an offering, get the yard signs, get the kids' curriculum, or some donut holes this morning. We are glad that you've joined us for worship, and I pray that you will be involved in intentional communication with the Lord, as you've heard this morning, especially from a heart of thanksgiving and praise. I hope you take those things to heart, and you live this week your life on purpose.